welcome to another edition of Pittsburgh Sportsline live in the BPTV studio. Thanks for watching us on Comcast 7 in Bethel Park. We appreciate it. Thanks for watching us on Verizon 32 everywhere in the Pittsburgh area, from Nemacolin to Cranberry, Wexford, and all points in between. We appreciate it. And thanks for the Facebook likes. I checked it earlier today. Had 6,392 likes. So thank you very much. We appreciate you watching us and liking us. And I'm Al Levine, the Talking Machine, Chip Hayner, and Smoking Jim Frazier. We got sports to talk about for you tonight. So we'll give you some of our insights, personal opinions, and I'm still watching Smoking Jim for pulling out the race card once or twice tonight. So we'll see what he comes up with. We start our opening segment with What's on Your Mind. I'm going to do that right now. Smoking Jim Frazier, what's on your mind?
Thanks, Al Levine, the Talking Machine. And if you want the green,
coming at you.
You got
Whoa,
to see Levine.
Fingertip grab.
Yeah, fingertip right there. Had a white cornerback defending me, so I felt confident I could make that catch.
You sure you weren't a wide receiver?
Yeah, we're sure. After last week's show, that he showed that newspaper, he was leading the team out.
I thought it was amazing how he was able to get the newspaper people to black out the year.
just so happened it came that way to me.
In 19-something, you know?
It was 82.
But anywho, what's on my mind is, first of all, Todd Marinovich was found naked with drugs on Monday. And talk about a player I missed out on. I thought he was going to be great. His father's a personal trainer, Troy Polamalu's trainer, and also Todd Marinovich went all the way through college without eating even a hamburger. Looked like he was going to be an outstanding quarterback and just pretty much lost his mind. But what's on my mind mainly is a 40-year curse of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I still can't understand. I can't get to the bottom of it. But
there isn't one. There wasn't one. They never called it a curse. You're the only man to do it. Go ahead.
Maybe so, because I just cannot understand why they weren't great in some of those 40 years. We talked about it in the past, Bobby Lane, Johnny Unitas, Bob Ferguson. This week we're going to talk about a first-round draft pick that they picked in the 5th pick overall in the 1957 draft, and that was Lynn Dawson, who, in my opinion, was a Joe Montana before Joe Montana. And, the Pittsburgh Steelers grabbing Lynn Dawson was outstanding. Never really got to play much here in Pittsburgh. In 1962, a guy by the name of Hank Stram, and we always talk about how small the football community and fraternity is. Well, Hank Stram from the Kansas City Chiefs picked up Lynn Dawson for one reason and one reason only. Because when Lynn Dawson was a superstar at Purdue, his offensive assistant coach was Hank Stram. Wow. And Hank Stram knew what he could do, picked him up with the Kansas City Chiefs, and he went on to lead the NFL 8 times in completion percentage. His number 16 is retired by the Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl champion, 3-time AFC champion, and 6-time Pro Bowl. Lynn Dawson, who should have been a great one for the Pittsburgh Steelers, ended up being a Hall of Famer for Kansas City Chiefs, and the curse continues.
Well, and just another little addendum to that was that Lynn Dawson and Hank Stram actually started the West Coast offense before it was called the West Coast offense. If you saw what Hank Stram and Lynn Dawson did to the heavily favored Minnesota Vikings in Super Bowl IV.
I saw it.
Joe Kapp was their quarterback. They had the Purple People Eaters, and the way they took the teeth out of their rush was the short little passes to the wide receivers, taking a little curl. Otis Taylor, and they moved the ball down the field in 5, 6, 7-yard chunks.
Yeah.
You know, they had a white running back there.
Ed Podolak.
Ed Podolak was
number 14.
His name was constantly being called by. But you know, that was you know, looking at that offense and then looking what Bill Walsh was doing with Joe Montana 15 years later. You could say that was the blueprint.
Ed Podolak was a credit to his race.
And folks, he's done it again.
I egged
You
him
fed
on.
into
I
it.
egged him on. I egged him
You
on.
fed into it. Somehow, if you're new to the show, you just learned about Smoking Jim. He's an NFL scout.
You know what?
He's
Jim is a mystery to us all. You know, we
Including
learn
himself.
we learn a little bit more about him every week.
But the race comes out each week. And then this curse, maybe what you should look into is Art Rooney Sr.
Art Rooney Sr.
He was a riverboat gambler.
Yeah. And he promoted a lot of things in the Pittsburgh area, as you know, boxing and fights everywhere and other sports. He was involved in
Horse racing.
Yeah.
He was part of the curse?
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Your curse
with Art Rooney was, you know, they got rid of Hall of Fame quarterbacks before they ever made the team, and then they brought in a Hall of Fame quarterback when he was well past his prime, and that was Bobby Lane. Bobby Lane had already had his best years with the Detroit Lions, winning championships there. He'd pretty much had outlived his useful life by the time he made it to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, look into Art Rooney Sr.
Gotta take a peek there.
Yeah, just take a little peek at him.
Next time you're talking to Dan, ask him about old Papa.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you'll find when Dan Rooney came in, things sort of changed.
Okay.
And the curse ended there.
You may be on to something.
The curse is totally made up by Smoking Jim Frazier. It's never been used before in history with the Steelers until this year. So I appreciate you and respect you, Smoking Jim, but we're going to move on. The Chip Hayner, what's on your mind?
Oh, thank you, Alan, and good evening, folks. What's on my mind? Quite a number of different, interesting, and unusual things have happened in the sports world since we last saw you. For the first time, I believe, ever in my life, I did not watch 1 minute of Olympic coverage. That being said, there were quite a number of major accomplishments in this year's Olympiad. You know, from Usain Bolt winning his third double gold medal in the 100 and 200 as signifying the fastest man on the earth. That was a pretty amazing feat. What Michael Phelps was able to do at 31 years old to add to his medal total. There was that girl named Ledecky, a young woman who's set world records in almost everything that she did. There was, the men's basketball team won, the women's basketball team won. You know, they just destroyed all their opponents. There was no mystery, no intrigue, regarding that. So, there were some very noteworthy events, but probably one of the moments that are going to be remembered best about the Olympics is one of the most embarrassing moments in American Olympic history. And this numbskull, let's just put it that way because I would use other words, but we're on a family show, tried to come across that he had gotten robbed and created a big story, and then basically bolted the country and let his teammates holding the bag, getting their passports taken. Well, he came back to the United States and dyed his hair. I wonder why. I hope that he loses every endorsement dime that he ever made. I hope that he never makes another endorsement dime. He's an embarrassment to all Americans and to the Olympic movement. So I've heard enough about him. I've talked enough about him. So there's that. Then, of course, we've got the ongoing battle between Roger Goodell and the Nflpa. I keep hearing James Harrison say that he doesn't trust Roger Goodell, that he's a liar, that he's a thief, and that he's a crook. And, and he's really, really upset with Roger Goodell. And I'm kind of confused as to why. Because Roger Goodell is only using the power that the NFLPA gave him. And this was, Alan and I have talked about union stuff before. This was a collectively bargained agreement. And, you know, the NFL Players Association gave the commissioner all of these powers, and the players, upon DeMaurice Smith's advice, agreed to the contract, and it's a 10-year contract, so they're stuck for the next 5 years on top of this one of having to deal with this. But I don't see why you would be upset at Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell is only doing what you gave him permission to do. Well, maybe you should turn your anger around to the other crook who sits across the table from Roger Goodell, which is Mr. DeMaurice Smith. He made a bad deal for the players. He's giving bad advice. And really, you know, all the money that he spends in litigation and loses to the NFL is money that could have been put into the players' retirement funds, things to help player safety, people's health benefits after they've retired, the people that have brain damage that are getting into their waning years. Think of all the things that could have been done with the $30 or $40 million that he spent with the Tom Brady thing, and now, you know, he was going to let James Harrison get suspended so that they could take them into court and spend more millions of the players' dollars. I don't understand why you hate Roger Goodell. James, you're hating on the wrong person. That's what's on my mind.
Ah, thanks, Chip. Notorious CBA, a mutual agreement between all parties.
Yeah. You know, and the thing, I was talking to Jim about this before the show. You know, when you go into a negotiation, and you've done more negotiations than I will ever dream of, but you go in with like 15 or 20 demands in the hope that maybe you get agreement on 5 or 6 of them, because you know there's a bunch of throwaways in there. So
everybody has them.
Yeah. So how did it end up where it is
and
now?
if you have lawyers involved, they recommend it. So.
Yeah. So right. So you know, I mean, I don't know. They put the emphasis on the wrong things, and now they're reaping the benefits of it, so to speak.
Exactly. Unbelievable. What's on my mind is a little bit of the Olympics. They're wondering why people aren't watching it. And I did try to watch it at times. I did enjoy a lot of the things that I watched. But it was odd with what was edited, what they were playing at times, and different events that were coming up. You know, they're in South America, there's some time difference, not much, but just the way, just how it flowed. You know, so I don't know what they can do about it except manage it a little bit better, if they could. But it just loses some of the flavor when you're excited about some of these events.
Let me ask you this. I mean, this is something. What would you think about if they had a central location every 4 years where the Olympics were held, instead of moving them from place to place to place to place and ending up dealing with like issues
Sewage.
like raw sewage in the water sources where they're having biathlon races and canoe races? It just...
Well, I've heard that before, and I agree, except for one thing. It was started in Greece way back when. But Greece as a country's had numerous problems financially. So
maybe they would
I don't know.
If they had that, you know,
every 4 years.
Yeah, you know, a little boost to their economy. But what do I know?
No, but it could. But I'd be open to hearing about that. I would
sure.
actually enjoy that. So you did have a steady location, and
Los Angeles was good.
Well, you know, and here's part of the thing. You know, like most of the events, you found out what the results were and who won the medals before they were ever even televised. So,
Yeah.
you know, so it's like kind of anticlimactic, because in this day and age of instant media, you know, somebody wins a gold medal and it's tweeted out across the planet within seconds. So, you know, instead of watching the drama build,
let's go to Los Angeles. It's in the United States. There's a little difference in time from east to west coast. They'd have to work that out. But so what if you're up a little later, or you get up early to watch some of these things? Smoking Jim might be on to something.
You're up at 4:30 anyway, right?
Ain't that the truth? No. Shame I can't watch TV at that time of day.
Yeah. Just if we could get Smoking Jim off of the curse. It's a non-existent curse.
No, I'd like to see him dig a little further into it. I'm sure we'll find some interesting tidbits Last time
We already have. He's already brought first rounders that lasted 1 year, and quarterbacks that become Hall of Famers.
One of the things that was one of the most amazing things is when the Steelers finally drafted the franchise quarterback Terry Bradshaw, they didn't trade him. Well, that was when the Emperor was here.
Chuck Noll was here.
Yeah.
He was the,
And they kept him after winning one game in his first season, which is a shocker. But the team had been
and that's something that Cleveland never got that memo. They change coaches every year because constant turmoil is a way to build a successful franchise.
Well, they got Terrell Pryor now, so things may be different.
He's
a winner.
But you want to know something else? It's still Cleveland.
Who will be throwing to him?
City of Champions.
RG me.
For a while we've been
City
told.
of Champions. Please.
Well, let's go to our next segments. We got Fiction and Fact with Smokin' Jim's Almanac.
Thanks, Al Levine, the talking machine. And indeed, this is interesting fiction and fact this week.
Tease us.
A friend of mine who's a dentist, white guy, his son, John Smith, white man with a black name, was a great running back at Fox Chapel High School.
What year?
In his last game this past year, he broke the school record by rushing for over 300 yards in one game. Good all-around athlete, built. Got a partial scholarship to play Division III ball at Allegheny College, which is a good school. And I received a sad phone call today. After 3 weeks of camp, he quit the football team. So, so that made me think about some other guys who went to college and quit. One is Desmond Brently from Perry High School. Desmond Brently was kind of like a Doug Williams type player when he played for Perry. Broke all Rod Rutherford's records. Even though he's black, he really wasn't fast. So he wasn't into, he was opposite of the stereotype there. But he had great size, big arm, big time arm. The summer before his senior year, his dad called me and told me that he had a scholarship offer, full ride to Akron University. And I told his dad to take that scholarship, but his dad says, well, we believe that there'll be some bigger offers on the board. I says, well, you can always pull out. I said, but I would take it. Bird in the hand's better than two in the bush. Well, he didn't take my advice. His son had a great senior year, but Akron had moved on to another quarterback. He had no scholarship offers, so his dad calls me 3 weeks before letter of intent day. And he says, hey, can you get my son a scholarship? Only thing we got is a prep school, and we're still going to have to pay about $13,000 on the prep school. We got $7,000 scholarship on a $20,000 a year gig.
Yeah.
So I called New Hampshire.
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire at the time was Division I AA powerhouse. They really didn't want to accept him because they had a sophomore quarterback at the time that was a record-breaking quarterback. And but based on my relationship with New Hampshire, they offered him a full ride. So I told his dad, and his dad asked me, what's the ratio of black to white there? I said, it's New Hampshire. He'll probably be the only black
anybody
guy on the
knows this,
team.
folks, not that I preface the show by race, but he walked right into it.
Yeah, so he declined the offer, so I had to go back to the coach and tell him, and kind of, I hate to do stuff like that because now next time I need a scholarship for a guy, it may not be available at New Hampshire. So anywho, luckily for me, Dennis Dirt Winston and the Pittsburgh Steelers great was the defensive coordinator at Grambling University. If anybody knows Grambling, you play quarterback for Grambling, you can probably get to the NFL. But unfortunately, Grambling doesn't have to recruit outside of Louisiana. But Dirt Winston fought, got him a full scholarship. Desmond Brently went to Grambling, and before Christmas, he calls up his dad and he says, I don't like it here. I want to come home. And his dad agreed to it. And that draws me to what his dad should have said. So last but not least on this scholarship. So anyhow, Desmond Brently comes home. No scholarship offers. Walks on to Robert Morris. His senior year, he finally starts. 3 games into his senior year, they bench him, and that's the end of his career. But he at least got his degree from Robert Morris. But anywho, way back in 1998, I'm in South Florida for the Soul Bowl. Northwestern High School versus Jackson High School at the Orange Bowl. And the University of Pittsburgh had already signed a running back that was supposed to be better than Emmitt Smith, and his name is Tory Cox.
Wow.
So after 5 minutes of watching Tory Cox, I knew he couldn't play a major college running back. But I kept spotting this kid, number 80, wide receiver that had just transferred his senior year there. Kept looking at him. He only caught 3 or 4 passes. After the game, I went into the locker room, talked to him. I immediately called Walt Harris when I got home. I did not want to waste an evening at South Florida by calling Walt Harris. But whenever I got home, I called Walt. They had 1 scholarship offer. Now, this kid had only one. He only had 1 other scholarship offer. And Pitt offered him a scholarship. He goes to Pitt. His name is Antonio Bryant. Antonio Bryant goes to camp. He calls me 4 days into camp. Whoa. He said, can I give him a ride to the bus stop and take all his stuff because he was quitting. Said, before you quit, call your mentor, which most of these guys, a lot of these guys don't have a father in their life, but his mentor was his midget league football coach. Yeah. He calls his midget league football coach, and his midget league football coach told him to stick it out. And he stuck it out, and the rest is history. He and Randy Moss are the only 2 sophomores to ever win the Fred Biletnikoff Award. He was a second-round draft choice of the Dallas Cowboys, played in the NFL over 10 years.
Did he play that long?
Yeah.
I can remember back when
a lot of teams, though.
Kendrell Bell was in his second year.
2002? Well,
yeah,
2003.
Yeah, Kendrell Bell was when they were doing the symposium for the incoming rookies, and he was trying to explain to these young men about, you're going to be getting a lot of money. They're going to get a lot of hangers-on, a lot of people that are going to want to try to ride it.
Antonio Brown? Brian was talking.
No.
Oh.
Kendrell Bell was, because he was in his second year. Oh. Antonio Bryant was in his first year. And Antonio Bryant, like the jerks that he ended up being, started mouthing off, you ain't going to tell me how I can spend my money, and because what they do is they have the younger guys in the NFL, so let the rookies know what they're going to be facing. And at that point, then trouble followed him wherever he went because of his attitude. But they try to help these young men to save themselves from themselves.
Yeah, you're right. Kendrell Bell's rookie year was 2001, and Antonio Bryant's rookie year would have been 2002. You're exactly right. You got a good memory there, bro.
I'm telling you.
Oh, that's good. And so that's it. That's Fiction and Fact from Smoking Jim's Almanac. Sometimes you just got to tell your kid, stick it out.
Thanks, Smoking Jim. I'm thinking about it. All right. Chip Hayner, what do you have for
What do we have for trivia tonight? Well, of course, with baseball pennant races heating up, and my Pirates are a little bit of a swoon right now, but I have a feeling they're going to turn it around tonight.
Me too.
They could still win 2 out of 3 against Houston, still put themselves in a great place. But thinking about baseball, like I always think about baseball, I love the game of baseball. I was thinking about some firsts in baseball.
Whoa.
Okay. And on August the 21st, 1931, Babe Ruth became the first player in Major League Baseball history to hit 600 home runs. He also became the first player years later to hit 700 home runs.
Wow.
But he became the first player to hit 600 home runs and he hit his 600th home run against the St. Louis Browns. Another first I'd like to make light of involves a certain player that Jim and I go back and forth on whether we think this man is worthy of the Hall of Fame. Jim says yes. I say no. But a certain Barry Bonds on August the 23rd, 1998. And this was a first in Major League Baseball history. And I bring this up in that date because this was before Bonds started into abusing steroids, okay? Because in the summer of 98, McGuire and Sosa took all the ink away from Barry Bonds. And Barry Bonds at that time was the best player in baseball. And Barry didn't like the fact that being the best player in baseball, he wasn't the most talked about player in baseball because McGuire and Sosa were hitting home runs out of every ballpark around, and which, you know, his ego came into it. But here's what Barry did before he started abusing steroids and performance-enhancing drugs. In August the 23rd, 1998, Barry Bonds became the first player in Major League history to hit 400 home runs and steal 400 bases. When he hit a home run, his 26th homer of the season, he had 400 home runs, 438 steals.
Put him in.
You know, so, you know, this is the thing. And this is why Barry's legacy is tarnished. Barry Bonds was still the best player in baseball before he started cheating. Why did he have to go to cheat and cheat the game and everybody else? I'll never be able to answer that question for you. But the fact of the matter was, Barry Bonds was a first ballot Hall of Famer. If he never used PEDs, he would have never hit 756 home runs. That much I can promise you. You know, he would have definitely been in the 500 club. Yeah, I think for sure would have been a pretty safe bet. But I mean, how does somebody that, you know, in '98, you know, he's in his mid to late 30s. How does he hit 350 home runs between his 38th birthday and his 45th birthday when nobody else has ever done that in the history of baseball? It's just...
It was clear. It was totally clear.
Nobody's ever done 400 and 400 either.
It's sad, but he did that before he started cheating. So it's interesting to try to imagine what would have happened had he not cheated.
How many
where
MVPs
he would have ended
did he
up.
have?
How many drug tests did he fail?
How many did he take? How many did he take? Probably zero. It's easy not to fail any if you don't take any.
He overslept.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the clear.
Okay.
It was vitamins he was rubbing in.
I like to go into
it was vitamins.
in another first. In his first major league start, 17-year-old Bob Feller struck out 15 St. Louis Browns as Cleveland beat St. Louis 4-1. Yeah. Bob Feller was one of the few men in baseball history that I believe clocked over 100 miles an hour. Yeah. He was one of the first. He was one of the bright spots in Jim's so-called City of Champions.
He doesn't even know baseball what you're talking about.
Okay.
17 years old starting a game.
And here,
unbelievable.
Here was a first. In 1907, the Pirates' Howie Kamenetz pitched a 5-inning no-hitter in the second game of a doubleheader. You know, you only have to play 5 innings for a game to be considered official. I don't know what caused the game to be called. Could have been darkness, could have been rain, could have been any one of a number of things, but a 5-inning no-hitter still counts in the books as a no-hitter.
I don't like that.
You see, I knew Jim wouldn't like that.
Rules are rules. Smoking, no curse there.
Okay, now, I bring this up because as a 5-inning no-hitter, then in 1974, we had Nolan Ryan of the California Angels, this was on August the 20th, struck out 19 batters in a 1-0 11-inning loss to the Detroit Tigers. The interesting thing about this fact was it was the third time that season Nolan Ryan had struck out 19 men in a game. That man could throw some heat. Wow. And speaking of pitchers that were phenomenal in the first 2 years of Dwight Gooden before he started powdering his nose were some of the most amazing pitching you've ever seen. In 1985, on August the 20th, Dwight Gooden of the New York Mets struck out 16 batters in a 3-0 victory over San Francisco. Gooden became the first National League pitcher to strike out 200 or more batters in each of his first 2 seasons.
Wow, that's amazing.
He was amazing, and his tale is quite a sad one. I hope he finds a way to get his head straight before he ends up becoming an obituary. Then going back to another interesting stat here that I found. 1989, August the 23rd, Rick Dempsey hit a leadoff home run in the 22nd inning and gave the Los Angeles Dodgers a 1-0 victory against the Montreal Expos in the second longest shutout in Major League history.
Wow.
22 innings, no
That's
score,
impressive.
1 home run, game over. That's all they wrote. Now, and here's another one that I thought was kind of amusing, and this happened on August the 23rd, 2006. And if you are a Pirate fan, and I'm sure when I remind Alan about this, it'll all come back to him. But there's been 2 times that this has happened in Major League history. Mm-hmm. And I'll just go over. The Kansas City Royals became the second team in Major League history to have a 10-run first inning and not win the game at Kauffman Stadium. The home team took a 10-1 lead, but were defeated by the Indians in 10 innings, 15-13 on June 8th, 1989. The Pirates scored 10 runs in the top half of the first innings against Philadelphia and lost 15-11. Now, why did I bring this up? And the thing to remember, Jim Rooker, who used to be an announcer for the Pirates, said there in the top of that, after the top of that first inning, he said, "If the Pirates lose this ball game, I will walk back to Pittsburgh."
I remember that.
The Pirates lost 15-11, and as a fundraiser, he did walk from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh.
Did he really?
Yes,
Yeah,
not right then, but later on in the season, he did do it, and he turned that gaffe into a fundraiser for a charitable cause. But I just think that's really, really funny that you're sitting there 10-0, top of the first inning. And I'm glad all he said is that I'd walk home from Philadelphia. Could you imagine? The possibilities are limitless. But there's one last thing I want to touch on. Right now, we are in the midst, and I know Jim's been all over this. He's been texting me after almost every game. The Little League World Series is going on in Williamsport, PA.
Yeah.
And on August the 24th, 1947, the first Little League World Series was at Williamsport, PA. The Maynard Midgets of Williamsport won the series. So once again, the Little League World Series is playing. If you really want to, I'll tell you what, I'm a true baseball fan. And yes, I can enjoy watching a Little League baseball game.
I've watched some of the innings, and it's
and
exciting.
I mean, sometimes just for for lack of nothing better to do, you go watch a game at the local ball fields, and you'll just crack up watching ball hit to the third baseman turn into an inside the park home run. But the kids in the Little League World Series now, geez, they're more like professional teams than
Can you still say midgets?
I guess it depends on the text you use it within.
Because
that was the name of the team. See, I didn't name the team. I mean, that was what the team's name was.
Yeah, I
You
don't
know
know.
how politically incorrect I am.
I have no idea what the mascot was, Smoking Jim.
I haven't heard.
Does that show any signs of prejudice on my part?
I haven't heard that name, and haven't heard
Just
that
worry
name.
about the race card and reverse discrimination like you talk about. Please. Google that. Well, thanks, Chip, for the Chip's trivia time. A lot of firsts. And how many MVPs did Barry Bonds have?
Yeah, he had 7, and you know what? How many would he have had?
Major League 7. I didn't know that. I knew about 3. That was 3 with the Pirates, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
4.
I never knew that.
Yes, he did. That's I think Roger Clemens
That was
won
one
7
bit of
Cy
trivia.
Youngs.
Thank you. Yeah, we need it. Wow.
But, like I said, the sad thing I think about Barry Bonds' legacy is that he may have been one of the best ball players that I've ever seen play.
5-tool.
He was a great ball player. It's a shame that he, chose the wrong path.
In my lifetime, the 3 greatest 5-tool players I've seen was Barry Bonds, Ken Griffey Jr. and Alex Rodriguez. Can you argue with that?
Well, I have seen more, but I'll tell you. I will talk to you. Willie Mays, Hank Aaron.
You seen them?
Yes, they were playing in the '60s when I was born, Jim. I fell in love with baseball when I was 5 years old. 1965, they were still playing.
I didn't know
In
that.
1966, Roberto Clemente was the first Latin American to win the
Mickey Mantle was still playing in '65.
But Mickey Mantle at that point was not the athlete that he was in the '50s. He was a shell of his former self. He destroyed that knee.
I heard he was fast.
But before he destroyed his knee and he injured his knee, slipping on a sprinkler head that was in the outfield, and it tore up his knee. And that's another guy. You know, here's a guy I think that may have had a legitimate run at 700 home runs had his career not been shortened by injuries.
He's a switch hitter.
Well, I heard he was the fastest guy maybe in the history of Major League Baseball up until 1947.
Really? Was Larry Doby that fast? You know who Larry Doby is?
Cleveland Indians,
yes, he was the first African-American player to play in the American League.
Black.
There we go. Smoking Jim strong. And we'll move on from that. On location, we weren't in a place this week. The third week of the month, we usually don't have a place to go to, but next week we'll be at Atria's PNC Park. See you from 7 o'clock to 8. We've got a great show planned for you, and I have some guests from the Meadows that are promoting a $5 million golf tournament that's coming up here. Yeah, you could win $5 million on a couple if you qualify for a hole-in-one attempt. So we've got 2 guests there going to be on the show from that.
We'll have to go out to the driving range, Jim.
That's it?
Yeah, you might want to.
Yeah.
We might have that. And since we're talking about that, I just happen to have Bethel Park Groups. Thanks, Jeff. Great cameraman, Jeff there. Bethel Park Groups and organizations who need money. These 2 guys are working on something. I have no idea what it'll be.
Keeping it under wraps.
As well they should. If you need $100 up to $5,000 for doing some community good in Bethel Park, you can contact bpcf.org. Get the application and apply for money for your group and organization and doing some goodwill in the community of Bethel Park. So check that out.
Hey, Jim, you know, that $5 million is better than the $5,000. Maybe we have to do.
All right.
Well, I threw it out there because
the driving range has lights. What you doing after the show?
I'm ready.
All right, here's the Rev 'em Up for Kids, sponsored by Pasta 2. We had guest Jim Gaskeb, who canceled the event because of rain the following Saturday. He was right. They had scheduling conflicts. It will be Sunday, the 4th of September, 11 o'clock till 6. Check it out. It's a mega car cruise. They got events. Johnny Halo's going to be singing there. Just a great thing, great time. And it's all for Bethel Park Recreation to raise some funds. So check that out. And I don't know, how did I miss Olive Oil's Pizzeria? Man, that pizza was good. The steak hoagie was wonderful. Call these guys up, 412-831-1900. They'll answer. Talk to Zach, talk to Jay, talk to Joe. They'll make your pizza like they made ours. It was just fantastic. They're a sponsor of our show. We appreciate them. Thank you. Then on a sad note here, with Joey Strong, Joey's famous Children's Cancer Foundation, donate $1. Anything you can afford. They got events coming up all the time. They have a 5K that's coming up in September here at the high school. Check it out, and we'll stay Joey Strong at the end of the show. All right, let's talk some Steelers.
2 questions I have for Jim. Is Landry Jones' performance last Thursday night cement him as the number 2 quarterback? Should the Steelers be looking for a number 2 and a number 3 quarterback? And what are your thoughts about the Steelers' interest in Keenan Lewis?
Well, I wouldn't bring Keenan Lewis back for all the money in the world.
They will.
Even after hip surgery?
Yeah. Even if he was totally healthy and still playing at all-pro level, I would pull a Chuck Noll on him because he left the Pittsburgh Steelers to move closer to down south, and that's where I would leave his career. Landry, but the Steelers are desperate because they cannot seem to draft cornerbacks that can stay healthy or that can play. In fairness to Landry Jones, who the Steelers traded some of their future away to draft him in the 4th round, when I told them on draft day that Sam Bradford was a bum and would never be able to play in the National Football League, and he was a 10-time better quarterback at Oklahoma than Landry Jones. So what makes you think Landry Jones will ever be able to play for the Steelers? But the Steelers' backup quarterback would have been a kid from Seton LaSalle. And once he tore an hamstring, Landry Jones went and probably set an NFL record that will never be broken, 4 interceptions in 1 half. So if Ben gets injured, our Super Bowl hopes of going to the Super Bowl this year and getting beat badly by Bruce Arians and the Arizona Cardinals that dream would be over.
So, now I think what the Steelers are waiting for is they're waiting to see who ends up getting cut, because obviously they want to see what kind of scraps are left, and they might find somebody that could work out, as opposed to signing one of the washed-up has-beens. I think the Michael Vick experiment taught them a little bit last year. Personally, I wasn't much of a Michael Vick fan. But, I mean, that being said, you could say something for his experience, but,
it didn't count for much when he couldn't do it on the field.
Well, and how is it that you're paid to be to be able to start at any time, and then you get thrown into the game when a quarterback gets injured, and then you come out with a comment that says like, "Well, I wasn't prepared to play." Well, isn't that what you get paid to do? But,
well, in all fairness to Michael Vick, who I would bring back for a couple of reasons. One, Michael Vick's a kind of quarterback that he didn't have benefit of training camp or an off season with the Steelers. They picked him up because of the rash of injuries, so he didn't even know who the receivers were. But after spending some time in this system, he knows the plays, he knows the reads, he still got the speed and the arm, and I think that he would be my first choice to come back. And if he couldn't do it, then you got to go find somebody else.
What was I going to ask you? Antonio Cromartie, he just signed with somebody.
Yeah, for 1 year. He still don't know all the names of his kids, but he's here.
1 year, $3 million. Well, he's got a lot of child support payments, So, but do you think the Steelers, missed out? Would he be a better option than anybody that we currently have on the team?
Well, it's hard to find condoms after they gave up 450,000 of them at the Olympics, and you may need those with Cromartie. So we don't need him in Western Pennsylvania.
Olympics are over, smoking.
But we do have to talk about it, and hopefully this will be the last thing we say about this. So Le'Veon Bell guaranteed us when he came to camp, not a chance that I'm missing any games. I got this. Okay, Le'Veon, I think you only displayed to us how really foolish you are to say that I got this, and then the excuse that you thought was going to get you over was I overslept. Are you kidding me? Is that the best you could come up with? I'm going to tell you something. I manage 15 or 16 guys every day, and I hear better excuses for people that don't feel like coming into work on a regular basis. Overslept? Are you kidding me?
He did save a game. He only got suspended for
game,
3.
Come on, he said none. So now,
well, he's wrong on that point, but I mean, they were going to suspend him 4. Mm-hmm. So his excuses, he threw enough out there that one of them they took off.
It just amazes me. I guess it's pretty hard to set an alarm clock. But I'm not an NFL player, I don't make millions of dollars, so I guess, it's okay for me.
Well, he had $75 to $80 million on the table, And my philosophy is, like I said, I'm not a drug and alcohol counselor. Steelers never have had one on their staff. They've always had players who had trouble in that area. And my philosophy is, even with Le'Veon Bell, is that when you are in the system to be randomly tested, that's when I trade you. So I would trade Le'Veon Bell. I cannot trust him to be able to pass a drug test.
That's the only thing that, I mean, I would be, and I wouldn't have a problem if they did trade him, but the only problem is when you trade somebody in the NFL, you really don't get back equal value. It's
Can you
like,
get back a six-pack, a warm six-pack?
Maybe not even warm.
Okay.
Not chilled at all. But I mean, you think about it. You get rid of Le'Veon Bell, who can, arguably one of the best backs in football. And what are you going to get from a second-round draft pick? And which could be a team that's drafting 28th.
That's great.
Which would be 56th. Draft pick. I mean, for somebody like him, you should be getting first pick in the draft. But beggars can't be choosers. If you're looking to get rid of them, whatever anybody's willing to offer you, you have to be willing to accept.
I mean, if you look at some of their history, you had Joe Gilliam that could have been one of the great quarterbacks of all time. You had Carlton Hasselrig that was an all-pro guard until he started drinking anything with alcohol in it. You had Super Bowl MVP Santonio Holmes, who was on his way to a Hall of Fame career before he started waking and baking.
Bam Morris was it?
Bam Morris is another. That's a great example. Bam Morris could have been a great player. Martavius Bryant, who last year I said trade. Now he's sitting out for a whole year, and now he's working out in California. Le'Veon Bell made a rap video with Snoop Dogg, who smokes more weed than Wiz Khalifa.
If that's possible.
Yeah, so I just, like I said, Chris Carter, my hero is Buddy Ryan. And Buddy Ryan traded Chris Carter, and it saved his life because Chris Carter would have died in Philadelphia. He never would have got off the drugs. But Minnesota Vikings had a program, only one of its kind in the National Football League at that time.
There's been more attempts to help somebody in failures than there have been successes. But they should, laud the successes. They're so few and far between. But maybe, there is a way to combat something like this. But certainly, sticking your head in the sand and having drug tests, whether they're random or not, don't seem to be solving the problem because the problem still exists. Players are getting suspended left and right.
And see, I feel bad. People are dying every day of heroin. They're dying every day of cocaine, crack. And I don't know what they're lacing the marijuana with, but evidently it's addictive. I feel bad for anybody that's addictive to drugs or alcohol because they don't want to. They can't break it. So being that I'm not a drug or alcohol counselor, I don't know anything about it. Only thing I can do is trade you away.
Well, the next question I have for you, Paul, on the Steelers. Okay, we've got a game here in New Orleans Friday night.
Is that when it is?
Yeah, Friday
I'll
night.
be at the Gateway watching Gateway beat Woodland Hills. But anyhow, go ahead.
With those season tickets you got.
Are they down at the Wolverine or are they up at Gateway?
They're at Gateway. They're at Anna Marino Stadium, baby.
Okay.
He'll be sitting on the end of the aisle.
Here's my question. Considering how valuable at least these two players are, would you play Antonio Brown? Would you play Ben Roethlisberger? Being that you see the performance that Landry Jones had last week, and Bruce Gradkowski's out until who knows when, is it smart to risk Ben getting injured? Because our whole entire season goes right down the tubes.
They already said they're going to play him.
If somebody rolls up on his leg, and what happened to Marquise Pouncey last year, the Hall of Fame game, he spent the entire season, never played it down.
Yeah, I would play him long as Burfict's not out there. I think I would send him against Cincinnati this year, but I would play him.
Well, Burfict won't be playing the first time.
The second time he will, yeah. So
he'll probably be on injured reserve.
Thanks, Smoking Jim.
Got to play him sooner or later. They got to get in football shape.
They should be in football shape. What have they been doing at camp?
That's that's the thing.
Not getting tackled.
And I do believe that back in the day, the 2-a-day practices did get people's bodies ready to be hit and to absorb the punishment that you do over the next 16, 17, 18 weeks. But the way professional athletes are now, there really is no off season. It used to be the players would come into training camp, and training camp was 6 weeks, and they would actually play themselves into shape.
Yeah.
At training camp. Now it's a year-round thing. They have mini camps, organized team activities. They're in the weight room every day. Like, there really is. They may take a week off after the season, but after that, how much better shape do they got to get into?
Well, what they're doing now is getting themselves ready for WWE. That's all they're doing. Is all the weightlifting and the running and the conditioning is what you would see somebody in
WWE.
Wrestling. But until I see somebody, you cannot weightlift your way. You cannot bench press anybody on the field until I start seeing form tackles. All you seeing now is guys throwing their body in there, not wrapping, because they don't practice tackling, and that's something that you cannot simulate. Now they got a robot.
Jim, on that point, I wanted to bring up that these kids have played tackle football their whole life. What do you need to teach them about tackling that when they get to the pros they don't know?
Well, the problem starts, in high school, I'm sure. But if you watch college football, and I know my friend Jim watches more college football than you and I will ever dream of.
He watches a game every day.
You've got college football games that have basketball scores because nobody's tackling. So they're not learning the basics.
Good
before
point,
they
Chip.
get to learning how to. You shouldn't go to the NFL to learn how to tackle. You should be a tackling machine by the time you get to the NFL.
Saying, yeah.
So it's not necessarily the NFL going soft on people. It's just it's the coaches in college that aren't teaching them the basics, the fundamentals.
I got a buddy that's a good bowler. He's broken 200 before, and he tells me he's been bowling.
One day?
He's been bowling his whole life, but
What's his average?
When he takes off, he's broken 200.
What does that mean? 300's a top
when
score.
He's taking 3 or 4.
Jerome.
When he's taking 3 or 4 months off, he still has to go back and practice and get back into that bowling swing. And I think you have to practice getting back, even though you may be a tackling machine. Some guys, you still need to practice that because you're not doing that.
Smoking Jim, that's a great analogy.
Yeah,
but what is his average?
He was below under 200, I'd say.
A little under.
Yeah,
now.
but he's broken 200 about 3 or 4 times.
For an average.
Well,
no, for
a game.
High score, yeah. He's broken that.
That's not that impressive. I have no idea what you're trying to prove. But your analogy between being off 3-4 months bowling and then going to practice bowling so you could maybe get over 200 once.
He hasn't gotten a chance to autograph the wall at Hollywood Lanes yet, but that's a goal of his.
He hasn't been there. Thanks, Smoking Jim. I'm sure we learned way too much from that. What's your high bowling score?
I've broken 100.
Did you?
Several.
Yeah, in a series. You know what a series is? It's 3 games.
He'll learn.
Yeah. Average 33 1/3.
No, he got 100 for 1 game. He thinks he did.
I've outdid 100, yeah.
You've gone over 100. Okay.
Yeah, surpassed it.
You know what? Next time at Hollywood Lanes, we'll have to have you practice a little.
I've retired my right arm from bowling, but
We'll go lefty. You could do it. And that's enough of that. So, thanks, Smoking Jim. Got a few minutes to talk Buccos. They've been disappointing lately with all the losses. We've had some good pitching. Good starting pitching.
It seems that the starting pitching is getting better. And it was really funny. Watching Garrett Cole pitch Friday night against the Miami Marlins, something uncharacteristic about the way Garrett Cole's pitching. And the guy is a warrior. He's a battler. You really got to drag him off the mound. And even though he didn't have his best stuff, and he gave up, like, I believe 10 or 12 hits that game, which is uncharacteristic for him, and it seems that he doesn't have that swing and miss pitch that he was showing earlier. But I think, you take into account, Garrett Cole's 24 years old, okay? 24, 25 years old. He's a young man. And this is what happens when a lot of these young fireballers come into the Major League Baseball. They come in and they can throw the ball through a brick wall. They can throw the ball close to 100 miles an hour. What ends up happening to them in the major leagues is that, now Major League batters can hit 100-mile-an-hour fastballs. And if you don't have it, if your ball's coming in flat, it's going right back out. You've got to have a down angle on it, and the ball's got to have movement. But really, Nolan Ryan was like this when he was young. When he was young, he was fast and he was wild. He didn't become an expert pitcher until he got older and he learned how to pitch. And what I mean by saying that is, you got their 100-mile-an-hour fastball, but some days your fastball isn't playing. So how do you get batters out when your number one pitch isn't working for you? That's when you've got to use your smarts. You change speeds. You try different pitches.
Location.
So you learn how to actually pitch, and then once you got them respecting other pitches of yours, once again your fastball starts to play. So I think Garrett Cole, even though he's having a bit of a disappointing season, I still think he's the ace of this staff. He will be the ace of this staff moving forward, and I think there's definitely better things in store for him this year as well as moving forward.
Yeah, well, we're seeing some good pitching starting out. They're giving up a few runs, and then the offense has left us again.
Well, the offense, it comes and it goes, and Kutch got hot for a few days, and then he cooled off. But the one thing I noticed this weekend, watching him on Friday and Saturday, was that even when he was making outs, he's hitting the ball the way Kutch used to hit the ball when he was successful. When he's doing well, he's hitting the ball from left center to right center field, and he's hitting it right on the button. Right. And even though
in the month of August, he's batting .250. That's his hottest month.
This is a terrible year for him.
He's having a bad year, Jim. It happens.
He's
not the first baseball player that had a bad season.
He's having a slump.
And I mean, me sharing a little something else to you. Go to Cooperstown. Look at every player in the Hall of Fame. They had bad years too. Okay, but anyhow, he's hitting the ball right at people. So I think
that's how you can tell when you're not on your A game.
Yeah.
When you're hitting them right at people.
But
makes a huge difference.
But what he's done since his benching in Atlanta is he has started making some plays that he wasn't making in the field earlier in the year. He has still made mistakes. Saturday night, he dropped the ball that allowed to run to score that he should have 100 times out of 100. What happened was he got underneath the ball, put his glove up, and I think for a split second, took his eye off the ball, and it just bounced off his glove, and you can't do anything about that. But he made some pretty incredible catches. On balls that I don't think anybody else would have got to. So
Marte would have got to it.
You know what,
Smoking Jim, you can debate all that. He made the play.
Marte's got an amazing arm, and he leads the leagues in assists for outfielders. He's got 15 already this year. But what I don't see out of Marte is him using his speed to chase down balls and not let him hit the ground. He will let a ball hit the ground in front of him and play it and trust on his arm than he will trying to dive and catch the ball. And because what they're worried about is once the ball gets past him, then the he's circling the bases. So I mean it's a balance, but with the speed that they've got in that outfield, they should be able to cover for one another.
Well, we're gonna have to shut it down. Hope you enjoyed the show. Smoking Jim, we got fights to go to at the Meadows Saturday night.
Can't wait.
Rod Salk will be fighting. Monte Everhart. Cheyenne Gist. She'll be fighting her second pro fight.
Forgot about her.
So a lot of great fights coming up. Chip, thanks for all your insights.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We're going to have to end this show. I want you all to thank you for watching us. Watch us again and stay Joey strong.